everyone, it's me again, and welcome to Faith's Feels. If you're new to my channel, welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Faith Grenade, and I put makeup videos here on YouTube, and you should subscribe, and then hit that little bell icon while you're at it. It'll notify you every time I upload, so you won't have to miss all of this clearly exciting action. What you've stumbled across is Faith's Feels, which is where I share my feels, either about a makeup product or about life in general. I put up a video last week talking about a surgery that I was going to have called a labiaplasty. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave it in the cards up there so you can check it out. I talk a little bit about what the surgery entails, what I had been through up to that point, in the paperwork leading up to the surgery and things like that. As I am sitting here talking to you right now, it is one day post-surgery. It is the 25th and the time is 12:01, so it's been a little over 24 hours since I had the surgery. So I'm going to update you guys a little bit, and I'm going to talk about, you know, the day of the surgery, how everything went, and how I'm doing right now, one day later. I wanted to thank you guys so much for the outpouring of love and support that you've shown me in my last video, in coming out about this whole process and my reasoning behind it and that sort of thing. Talking about this so publicly was not an easy decision for me to make, because I was so worried about what other people would think, and I was worried about the kind of backlash I might receive talking about something that's such an intimate topic. But I ended up educating some people in the process, and I ended up receiving such a huge amount of love from you guys, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, thank you for all of the support you showed me. It really sort of affirmed the decision I made to come out and talk about this on a public forum was the right decision to make. I'm going to talk a little bit about the day of the surgery, which was yesterday. I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had to stop eating at midnight the night before, and I had to be in the hospital by 7:30 for a surgery that started at 9, because they wanted to introduce me to the entire team who would be working on me, and talk me through the process again, and all that great stuff. So plan on arriving stupidly early, because usually surgeries take place right at the beginning of the day, because they don't want you to go without food for too long. Where I talked to the admitting nurse, he was super nice, very friendly. He'd asked me if I'd gone to the bathroom yet, because before they, if you're a woman, before they do any surgery, they have to make sure you're not pregnant, particularly gynecological surgeries, but any surgery, they have to make sure you're not pregnant before they put you under anesthesia, because there are certain drugs that they cannot use if you're pregnant. So they have to do a pregnancy test. Of course, my husband had encouraged me to go to the bathroom before getting walked back for talking to the nurse, so I didn't have to pee at the time, which was unfortunate. But they took me back to a prep area, which was basically just a bunch of chairs with some medical equipment. They gave me a gown to change into, and once I did that, and they all came in with, one of the nurses came in with a medical technician who was going to run an IV. And this is the case with pretty much any surgery that requires general anesthesia. You will get an IV, obviously, because they need some way of, giving you the sleepy time drugs, but they also want you to be properly hydrated. And they were hoping that when they gave me the saline drip, I would eventually pee so they could take a pregnancy test. When they put the needle in my arm, everything was fine. It pinched a little bit, but I'm slowly recovering from my anxieties associated with needles, so it wasn't so bad. Once they hooked up the saline drip, though, and that started running, I started to feel dizzy. And I told the tech that I was feeling a little bit dizzy, and I did what I thought was nodding off, because I was like, oh, I guess it's early in the morning. I guess I nodded off, and fell asleep, because I was pretty tired. I'd only gotten like 2 hours of sleep the night before. But it turns out, and then as I was laying there thinking to myself, oh, I must have nodded off, I realized I was sweating. And I was like, wait, why am I sweating so much? And the next thing I knew, I opened my eyes and a nurse was standing at the foot of me. I was sitting in like a chair that reclines into a bed or like, does all kinds of stuff. And I was sitting in this chair and I saw the nurse at the front of me holding my legs up in the air. And as another nurse was on another side, or another tech was on the other side, tilting my chair back, so my feet were in the air and my head was closer to the ground, and another nurse was on the other side of me saying, hey, it looks like you had a vasovagal response, which is medical talk for I fainted. And I was like, oh, I passed out? Oh, okay. And that can happen sometimes. My sister actually faints almost every time she gets her blood drawn. It's something that can happen as a result of panic or anxiety. It's something that can happen as a result of a number of different things. I normally don't faint. And I told the nurse, I was like, that's the first time that's ever happened to me. I normally don't faint when I get blood drawn or when I have an IV put in or anything like that. So their best guess is that the tech nicked a valve in my vein. And when that happens, which it happens sometimes, when that happens, that can trigger a vasovagal response. Basically, the body goes into fight or flight mode and, all of the blood rushes to the feet. And so, your brain's not getting enough oxygen. First thing that happens, you black out. So I fainted. And I think they did hit a valve, because I'll show you here. This is the bruise that was left behind by the IV. It's pretty bad. I mean, I normally bruise a little bit as a result of, vein work, but that bigger, darker spot there leads me to believe that they did nick a valve and my vein might have collapsed sometime in the process. But yeah, that was really the only dramatic part, was when I fainted. Managed to get the pregnancy test. Not pregnant. All good. And then I talked to a few more people. I talked to the anesthesiologist who was going to be putting me under. I talked to the OR nurse that was going to be on duty. I talked to my doctor who was going to actually be conducting the surgery, and everybody else like that. And then the anesthesiologist gave me some what they called relaxation meds, basically to just mellow me out and start to calm me down. It's not the anesthesia itself. It's just a little bit of like mellow medicine. So my body didn't involuntarily freak out once I got moved into the operating room. So then they wheeled me over into the OR. After all that stuff was done, after we made sure all the paperwork was signed, everything like that, I got wheeled into the OR after receiving the relaxation meds. And I was feeling pretty mellow at the time. I was feeling quite calm. I'd been feeling calm pretty much the entire time. And then they helped me onto a table. And all I really remember is I saw two big disc lights that, are in your typical operating room. And then I saw a bunch of people around me who were preparing things and setting things up. And I saw some stirrups on the bed in front of me where they would obviously be putting my feet to actually conduct the procedure. I don't even remember the anesthesiologist putting the knockout meds in. I remembered looking up at the ceiling, seeing the two big disc lights, and then seeing a few people around me, and I was out. Like, that was it. I don't even remember them putting the knockout drugs in or anything like that. They also gave me an anti-nausea med just in case. The chance of me actually vomiting from anesthesia was pretty low because I'd never done it before. And usually, if you get nauseous as a result of anesthesia, if you've had surgery before, they already know about it. And if you don't, then it usually doesn't happen. So it isn't like a close your eyes, it doesn't feel like a blink, if that makes any sense. At least not for me. Some people, when they get put under, it's like they close their eyes and open them and it's over. For me, that's not quite it. When I get put under, it feels like I've been under for maybe about 30 to 45 minutes. It feels like I'm taking a nap. So it doesn't feel like I'm just, blinking and it's done. I do feel like I'm unconscious for a little while. So But I remember waking up in the recovery area, and it was another kind of room filled with chairs and beds and medical equipment. And I remember coming to and feeling like not a whole lot of time had passed, which is pretty normal, because for one, this is a very fast surgery. The surgery itself only takes about half an hour to 45 minutes. Most of the time that you see passing is prep time and breakdown time. Then I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, we're done. And then, one of the techs came in. She was like, hey, oh, you're awake. How you feeling? Are you nauseous? Is there any pain at all? I didn't feel anything at all. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel any nausea. I didn't feel really anything. I felt fine. And I was actually quite lucid when I first woke up. Like, everybody thinks that when you wake up from anesthesia, it's going to be like David after dentist, where you're just like, and all like tripped out and stuff. It really depends on the individual. For me, both of the times I've had to be put under anesthesia, when I wake up, I'm lucid. Like, I'm perfectly fine. I'm speaking normally. I'm not really like in this doped up situation where I'm not making any sense. Like, I make perfect sense. I know I tend to talk a lot when I first come out. So I was talking, I was chatting, I was cracking jokes with the nurses. So they were feeling good about my recovery. I bounced back very quickly from anesthesia, which they seemed to be pretty impressed by. But I was, talking to her, and I was like, yeah, I honestly feel fine. I felt a little bit of an itchy sensation kind of down in the nether regions. More than likely that was from the iodine-based solution they had used to like sterilize the area, because there was a bunch of yellow stuff all around my pelvic region that I ended up having to wipe off with a damp cloth later. And she said that was more than likely what I was feeling, because before the surgery started, the doctor injected the area with a local anesthetic that also has an like a blood coagulant in it. So basically it prevents me from bleeding too much. Pain-wise, I didn't feel any pain at all. I was perfectly fine, totally lucid, up, talking. I could move my arms and legs and all of that. My neck was a little bit stiff, which can happen sometimes. One of the side effects of anesthesia can be like muscle aches and pains. And I didn't really get a whole lot of pain. I just, my neck was a little bit stiff, so I kept kind of moving it around and trying to get it, stretched out again. They had put an apparatus in my mouth. It wasn't an intubation, which means, they stick a tube down your throat and breathe for you. It wasn't that. But they did stick a breathing apparatus in my mouth to supplement additional oxygen to make sure that, I was getting enough oxygen and breathing normally, but I was breathing on my own. They did have to put a breathing aid in the back of my mouth, which made my throat a little bit dry and a little bit sore. So they gave me a glass of water, and they gave me some crackers because I hadn't eaten in an entire day really. So they knew I should eat something. So they gave me some saltine crackers, and I was eating those. So once I reached stage 2, they brought my husband back, and he got to see me. And he was expecting me to be a lot more doped up than I was. And I was like, nah, not really. I feel fine. They got me to stand up and kind of, take a few steps, and made sure that I still, that I had full use of my legs. And they allowed Justin to help me change back into my street clothes. I had worn a very loose-fitting pair of pajama pants, and I highly recommend comfortable clothing because you don't want anything skin tight, especially when that area is so tender and sensitive. You really want things that are loose-fitting, free-flowing, and things that you wouldn't necessarily care about getting blood on, because depending on the individual, you might bleed quite a bit. When I woke up, I was wearing mesh underwear with a big wad of gauze just right on the area. So they gave me a maxi pad, and they allowed me to kind of put the gauze on first and then put the maxi pad on underneath my underwear in case it bled through. It hadn't even bled through the gauze yet at the time, so I was still doing pretty well, but I got to change back into my street clothes and my cotton mesh underwear. And Justin helped me with that. He helped make sure that I could get into my pants okay and, all that stuff. So it's really important to have a trusted friend with you, even if it's not your spouse. And bring somebody that you trust, because chances are good they're going to be seeing you, at the very least partially naked, because the person who gives you a ride home is going to be the one who's helping you get dressed. And you will need someone to give you a ride home because you can't drive if you've been knocked out. So usually it'll be that person. If not, I'm sure doctor's offices can bring in a nurse to help you change, if you don't want your friend to help you. But I know I felt a lot better just having Justin do it because, we're married. We've been married for 5 years, so there's nothing on me that he hasn't seen. And then they brought in a wheelchair and they sat me down in the wheelchair and they wheeled me out to our car. And right around that time, I started to feel a little bit of soreness. Not like full on pain, but just like kind of a dull ache, if that makes any sense, in the nether region-y area, which kind of surprised Justin. He wasn't really expecting my the numbing medication to wear off that quickly. But I guess I'm a pretty fast metabolizer. I have a pretty fast metabolism to begin with, so it makes sense that drugs kind of move quicker through my system than most. But they brought me to the car, they helped me into the car, made sure I was all buckled in, and that was the last I saw of the medical personnel. Because I could feel the numbing medication wearing off, I could feel some soreness, a little bit of pain start to come in. And so I just sort of laid back and I, put my sunglasses on because my eyes were still a little bit sensitive from the anesthesia. So I just put my sunglasses on and just tried to zone out. I didn't go to sleep really, because I wasn't terribly tired. I was just, my nether regions had started to hurt a little bit. So I was just kind of meditating, if that makes any sense. And I highly recommend that. Like, look into self-guided meditation because it does help. I just sort of zoned out. Don't think about anything. Don't focus on anything. Just, focus on sort of feeling what you need to feel, taking each wave as it comes. It did get worse the closer we got to home because the drugs were starting to like really wear off and it was getting to a point where I wasn't going to be on anything related to like painkillers or like numbing medication or anything like that. So at its worst, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no pain at all or maybe a little tiny bit of pain and 10 being absolutely unbearable, the worst it got was like a 5, I would say. So it got a little bit owie in there, but it really wasn't too terribly bad. We got home, I made my little den on the couch, and I think I did pee when we got home, which going to the bathroom is an adventure. So you can urinate and defecate after the surgery. You just have to be extremely careful. If you decide that you need to go number 2, you cannot push or strain at all, because any kind of pushing or straining could pop a stitch, and that would be really, really bad. So you really just kind of have to sit there and let it happen naturally, which takes a while. And with going pee, it does burn a little bit when you pee, because obviously the urine is kind of splooshing up against the stitches a little bit. And rather than wiping as you normally would initially, you have to sort of bidet yourself, if that makes sense. So you have a little squeezy bottle we used an old sinus irrigator, which is a little squeeze bottle, and some water, and you basically just squirt water to kind of rinse off the area rather than wiping with toilet paper, because that can be a little too abrasive when you're first recovering. And then so you squeeze the water to kind of wash it off, and then you blot thoroughly because everything should be dry. You want to focus on that area being clean and dry, because when they put stitches down there, they put dissolvable stitches, which dissolve in moisture. So those stitches will dissolve prematurely if they're damp for too long. And then put bacitracin on it, which is Neosporin, basically. And it's not necessarily to prevent infection as much as it is to prevent the gauze that you put on top of it from sticking to you. So by then, I was feeling it a little bit. So I ate some baby carrots, and then Justin gave me some water and my pain meds to take. I was given 2 different types of pain medication. I was given 800 milligram Motrin tablets, which are basically ibuprofen, and I was given Vicodin. Now, they told me to avoid taking the Vicodin unless I absolutely had to, because Vicodin is a narcotic. It's an addictive substance, and it can be a little bit, dangerous because it can be habit forming. So, and naturally, I didn't want to take narcotics unless I had to. And usually, from my experience in the last 24 hours, I haven't needed it. I will take it right before I go to sleep for the night because, I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night. And it can help me get into a comfortable position to get to sleep. But for the most part, I've just been taking 800 milligram Motrin every 8 hours. It helps with the swelling tremendously because it helps kill inflammation, and it can help with the pain as well. I stayed awake for a good long while, kind of watching TV and just, checking in on Facebook, letting everyone know I was okay, that I was out, that I was home, and responding to comments and things like that. And then I took a nap. That was it. Pretty boring. I took a nap for a while, and then I peed again and, took another Motrin at around 11 o'clock along with all the rest of my regular prescription meds and a Vicodin. Went up to bed, and the Vicodin helps you fall asleep pretty quickly. I never really felt like high per se. With those, I didn't feel intoxicated at all. It's just, it makes you sleepy. So let's talk about mobility, because as you can see, I'm laid out on the couch right now. Moving around is not too terribly hard. I do have to be careful about how wide I spread my legs, if that makes any sense, because there are stitches down there. It's still a very tender area, and if I spread my legs too far or sort of get myself in a position where my labia minora are being pressed, or if any kind of pressure is being put on them at all, it can sting a little bit. Other than that, I can stand and walk for, a few minutes at a time. If I start, if I walk for too long or stand up for too long, I start to feel a little bit of that dull throb I told you about, of my body kind of being like, hey, slow the fuck down, we're hurt over here. So then eventually I do have to lay back down, because sitting upright is not really a possibility for me right now, because it would put too much pressure on my labia, and it does hurt quite a bit. So I cannot sit upright. I can recline, I can lay down. I can now lay down on my side. As you can see, I'm doing that right now, and I'm not really feeling any pain at all. But squatting, bending, crouching of any sort, and sitting up are both totally not happening. I haven't actually looked at it yet, in terms of holding a mirror up to it and actually looking at it, and looking at the job she did, because right now everything's going to be really swollen and really kind of distorted, and that just hasn't been my focus for now. My focus has been keeping myself comfortable and making sure I'm taking my medications on time, managing my pain well, and just resting. That's all I've been doing the last day and a half, has been just resting, at least as best I can, while still doing what I need to do. My doctor, just as policy, wants to follow up in 2 weeks to see how things are healing, to make sure everything's going in the direction it's supposed to go. And so I've got an appointment set up for that. I'll probably check in with you guys again after that appointment, to just let you know what the doctor said and how things are going and how my pain is managing, and the whole process from there. I'm not planning on doing daily vlogs by any means, because I'm not anticipating a whole lot's going to change between now and tomorrow, for example. They also say no friction to the area and no penetration for 6 to 8 weeks after the procedure. So no masturbating, no tampon use, no sex, nothing like that for 6 to 8 weeks afterwards. So, yeah, that's about it for the update of day 1 post-op. I hope you guys found this video helpful, informative, or entertaining. If you did, there's a button for that. Spank that like button in the butt. You know it deserves it. And if you want to see more from me, you got a couple options now. You can click the videos on either side to binge if you're bored or bummed out, or hey, you can hit that button that looks like my face, then subscribe and become a member of the faithful today. I put out new videos every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining me today. Thank you so much for all your support and love, and I will see you in the next video. Toodles!